Welcome to another episode of Football Fever on Chubba TV, and I'm your host Chubba as always, and I'm glad that we already have our man who does all the A-League and brings us all the updates and scoops when it comes to the A-League, the best man in the business, Tony Rallis. Good evening.
Good evening, Chubb.
Tone, before we kick into it, firstly, I just want to say to all our subscribers, we hit a new bit of a goal today. We hit 15k subscribers, which has been excellent in such a short period of time, and we really just want to thank everyone that has supported the show from the start. It's been absolutely overwhelming, the response we've had. And I mean, we even broke a story today that we'll get into a little bit later with the Newcastle Jets that really got massive traction. So we're really happy with how things are progressing, and we just want to thank everyone for the support. Andy O just made it on time.
Gentlemen, welcome. Well, you're a bit early today, aren't we? Jeez.
Mate,
There's a debate on that one, Andy. It could be a case of you being late.
I think I scraped in by 30 seconds. No? Oh, no, 1 minute.
Well, at least everyone knows that there's no forward planning on this show and it's all ad lib.
Boys, we've got a lot of action to go through because it was a jam-packed weekend, especially in the A-League for the both women and the men's. Let's quickly look at the Ninja A-League women. We had the A-League Women's Grand Final, which went all the way to that dreaded penalty shootout. But the great news for Central Coast Mariners, they overcame after 1-1 at the end of extra time and winning the penalty shootout, won their first maiden A-League Ninja Grand Final, Andy and Tony.
Yeah, unbelievable, Chubbs. It was it just went down to the wire watching that game quite intense. We had some family over yesterday. We were watching the game, and mate, everyone was glued to the TV, and just a massive run for Central Coast Mariners. We know they did it the hard way. They got through Melbourne and previously unbeaten Melbourne City last week, which was huge, and now to go down, travel back down to Melbourne again this week, yesterday, and come away with the win in the grand final. It's huge, especially for what the club's going through, Tony, which I'm sure you can sort of elaborate on.
It's a major achievement, isn't it? It's another underdog story for the Mariners. I was watching the A-League semi-finals the other day, and they've made the Mariners are second in the A-League's men's finals, only to Melbourne Victory in finals appearances. To have them win their maiden women's team put together about 3-4 years ago, another historic achievement that backs up what the men have achieved. And all this in extremely uncertain times in the last 4 or 5 years. Everyone knows that Mike Charlesworth, the current owner, wants to sell. Why he betrayed Richard Peel, who was managing the club, and didn't let him grow the club is beyond me. Since Richard Peel's left the building, it seems to have all fallen apart. And so it gives it even more kudos on the achievement of the women and the club in it as a whole. And geez, imagine if a proper owner gets that club with some proper resources and proper structures and planning. It's a fantastic story, a fantastic community, and congratulations to all involved in the Ninja Women's League.
Chubbs and Tony, can I just make a little shout out, a reference that I was made aware of yesterday evening? Actually, I'm not sure if you're aware, but former Western Sydney Wanderers captain is now the first grade coach at Marconi Women's, and a good mate of mine, Michael Herrera, is his assistant. I just want to mention this story. So yesterday in the NPL youth and seniors, Marconi it was their round against the Central Coast Mariners. Now, Central Coast reached out to Marconi and asked if the senior game, so your 23s and first grade games, can be postponed and rescheduled because of the grand final. The grand final kicked off at 3:15 yesterday afternoon. Marconi actually acknowledged that and have rescheduled all senior games. So the first grade are playing, I understand, this Wednesday, and the 23s are following Wednesday night. So I spoke to Michael, the assistant coach, as I mentioned, a good mate of mine yesterday. I said, mate, why would you do that? I said, aren't you sort of, you're at home and and he said, Andy, we sort of done it for the youth. We've done it for the girls because they wanted to put on an event at Central Coast Leagues Club for all the youth girls to watch the grand final, which I think is fantastic. So just hats off to Marconi and the club, and Michael Beecham, who's making making massive inroads there in the women's program. I know that for a fact with some people that I've got there at the club. Yeah, I just wanted to shout that out, boys, because it's not very rare to see a club do something like that and put off games to accommodate.
Not very rare that the Australian football family can assimilate and work together.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
100%. Yeah, well, that's like you said, excellent for Central Coast, and especially after what's happening on with the club, it's great to see that the women's grand final, and they won their maiden grand final. Absolutely terrific season. You know, the women's league keeps getting stronger and stronger every season, so it was great. Another great season, and credit to all the women out there, and it finished on a very dramatic way as well. Moving right along, we had the first major semi-finals on Friday night, and we had one of the big games there. Western United taking on Melbourne City. Boy, was I wrong in these predictions. I was thinking that Western United could cause an upset there, but they're going to head into the second leg, Tony, with a lot to do with a 3-round. They'll have to do something that, you know, it's very hard to do. It hasn't been done yet in the A-League. Turn around a 3-0 deficit in the first round of an A-League major semi-final.
Major achievement if they can, but I doubt it. I think kudos and credit to Aurelio Vidmar and Mike Petrillo at Melbourne City. At least the football department of Melbourne City is doing it right, because I think the City group has let the A-League down. They're not doing it right off the field. But Michael Petrillo and Aurelio Vidmar, I mean, the amount of injuries they had at the start of the year, and players are still out. Significant players, Socceroos like Lecky and Dzeko and Naboo and Helio at times, for them to play with kids and to finish as strongly as a kudos to their football, and I stress to their football department, because the rest of it's quite negative from a commercial perspective. But I can't see Western United coming back in Chubb. It's quite sad, because John Aloisi's done a great job. He's finally gone with youth, and him and the football director, Mali Piata, have done a fantastic job. But it's my understanding that tomorrow they're going to be hit with 30 breach notices from their players across their men and women's team. That will give the club 14 days to fix wages and to correct the superannuation, something that's lagging. I just think that the ownership structure and the delay in making the sale will self-destruct the team on the pitch. Imagine being a young man, paying your rent, paying your mortgage, someone that's married, has a child, not getting paid, being told it's delayed for 2-3 weeks. How John Aloisi and Mali Piata have kept it together is beyond me. I think questions need to be asked about the potential new ownership structure. There's more questions than answers with respect to their viability. History shows there's an investigation as we speak at the moment on the viability of the proposed new owners that got announced 2 weeks ago. They've had more Titanic sinks than the Titanic itself. So I'm not sure where this club's going to go. It's so demoralising for John Aloisi and the football department, led by Mali Piata. What a great job they've done. But tomorrow they're going to get hit with breach notice by 30 of their players across the men's and women's team.
Wow.
I can't see how that payment can be met. So I expect that all those players, if not just salaries, but salaries and superannuation, don't get paid, which I'm led to believe superannuation hasn't been paid for a year. And Andy, you know yourself, running a business, that is a big no-no. And I suspect that a lot of players at Western United will be looking for other pastures as a consequence of the 14-day clause, as a consequence of tomorrow's breach notice.
Yeah, terrible timing as well. Right in between an important game for the club. And is there any chance that there's not going to be any impact on the game this weekend, Tony?
I don't think there'll be an impact on the game, but with what passion and what drive can these players play? It's been going on for a long time, and people have been trying to cover it up for the good of the game. But it's, there's a lot of guys beating their chest who brought these ownership structures. Manny Pappas, the brother of the former Newcastle Jets coach Arthur Pappas, Chubb tried to invite him to the show last week. He obviously didn't want to come on. That in itself creates concerns, and from my opinion, look, I hope the club survives what the owner or the chairman's trying to do there is honourable by building a stadium and building commercial, but he's gone on too long without delivering. And I think, unfortunately, things may have caught up to him.
Is it fair to say the club potentially in a bother in terms of the viability moving forward?
I'm concerned of its long-term viability if what I'm hearing is true.
Wow.
Just on the game as well, boys. I mean, Melbourne City looked really good, and the second goal by the Israel import Cohen, what a finish! What an absolutely gem of a goal. And Tony, like, maybe it is looking like a Melbourne City Auckland final. I mean, a lot of people talking about, and Melbourne City looking really, really good at this stage.
As I said earlier in my intro, I think what Vidmar and Petrillo have done by getting the best youngsters and surrounding themselves with some quality players. Cohen, the Israeli, and others had been out for long periods of time, and some of those young kids that are coming through, boy, there's some real talent in Melbourne City and Western United. Let's not forget 3 of the 6 clubs in the finals are from Melbourne. Mm. There was only Western Sydney Wanderers from Sydney, and then obviously Auckland and Adelaide. So it tells you a bit about the dominance of playing some of these young ones, especially at Melbourne City and Western United.
Andy, you would have to, the second leg, Western United really still, as a camp, will have to really believe in themselves that they can turn this around. Obviously, an early goal, go one up, maybe even a second goal, give Melbourne City something to think about. But can you see any dramatic comeback come this weekend?
Look, I can't, although you got to say, Chubbs, they had chances. They did have chances. Some great, they had some great chances too. I don't think the scoreline was a true reflection of the game, but now from what we're hearing, from what Tony's told us, as he said, I don't know how much of an impact that's going to have. And but look, in the game itself, on Friday night, they had some great chances, and could have easily scored a couple of goals themselves. Just didn't take that opportunity. I quickly want to mention, Chubbs and Tony, something you broke during the week, Chubba, about young Noah Botic being sold overseas and
possibly going to St. Pauli at Bundesliga.
Correct, yeah, in Germany. But has anything come from that, Tony, in terms of I suppose the ownership of the club itself now, or?
I don't think that. I mean, Chubba broke the story, and obviously he's across it from various sources that he has. But my view is that Botic is off contract, so he's one of the lucky ones. Of course, Western United are entitled to some FIFA development compensation because he's 23 or under. So technically, St. Pauli's taken a bit of a risk on Botic, which is a low investment risk because they don't have to pay $1 million or $1.5 million, which they otherwise would have to pay if he wasn't on contract. He ran his contract out, and due to his age, is some FIFA development compensation. That's the extent of it, which is quite sad for Western United because they've put so much time and effort in developing him. They gave him the opportunity. They created a pathway for him. The same for Sydney FC with Adrian Segasic. And my understanding is that he'll be going as well. And the only compensation Sydney will get is another calculated FIFA development compensation, which is calculated based on how many years he's been at the club and what league he's going to. So there's different annual amortizations that happen in that case. But yeah, I don't think it's going to affect Noah Botic one bit.
Looking forward to Saturday night's game was a cracker. We had Melbourne Victory taking on Auckland, the Premier's Plate winners, of course, of the inaugural season, are having a wonderful season. They got home 1-0 in a very tight game where both teams could be missed plenty of chances, and they won in the 94th minute. Auckland had hit both posts to take a 2-0 lead. How significant do you think that could play, Andy? Can you think heading back home, sold out stadium and Auckland FC, it'd be great for Auckland to make the final. I'm hoping they can get the job done, but there's still a long way to go, still 90 minutes, and this game's still got a lot to play out with Melbourne Victory.
Yeah, well, this was the one we spoke about last week. Chubb, and said it could really go either way. They got the wood on them just a couple of weeks ago, as we mentioned last month, with the 2-0 victory down there. It was obviously a lot tighter, but you know what? It's a game of inches, and I think that second goal that came off both posts,
Wow.
as you just
Have you
mentioned.
seen something like that? 94th Tony, 95th minute. What dramatic.
Yeah,
One post to another post. I mean,
And
oh,
back to the keeper. And back to the keeper.
and back to the
yeah,
keeper.
right, straight back into his arms. And I think that's potentially, look, you're going to have what, 25,000, whatever is at their stadium.
No. They've extended the stadium. They're going to have 30,000.
30,000,
Oh,
yeah.
wow. Okay, there you go. So 30,000.
I'm telling you, they'd
Uh,
make a 50,000 stadium. They'll fill it up there,
I
mate.
think I think they will too, mate. I was actually on their socials over the weekend on their social media, and they're doing some great activity over there, and in encapsulating the locals and the people, football mad people. You have to say there's a lot of expats over in Auckland, guys, as you're probably aware. So they love their football. They're a big passion. We even saw a decent crowd down there in Melbourne for this game. So for them to come away with that 1-0 win, I just would have been more confident if that second one had gone in, because Melbourne were coming. Melbourne had their opportunities. To be fair, Auckland, I think they done their homework. They played to their advantage and took on someone like Arzani, who wasn't as effective as he was against Wanderers. So and credit to Steve Corica and the coaching staff. Their game plan worked out well. They've managed to sneak a goal away from home.
I think the game was really a game of two halves. I mean, the first half, you'd have to say the first 20 minutes victory was the dominant force, and they had some chances, and they probably didn't know how to execute on those chances. And I think that's been a reflection of their whole season. I think they've dominated games in patches of 10, 15, 20, 25 minutes, but haven't been able to put sides away, which is surprising considering their front third of Arzani, Vallipole, Virgos, Fanaroli comes on, Piscopo comes on, Jim Reese comes on. So I think it's going to be one of those games that if Auckland hold them out for 30 minutes, Auckland just seem to have tremendous discipline, tremendous desire, outstanding endurance, and physically wear down teams. So the 12th man of 30,000 people, I mean, everyone talks about a big crowd at a victory. I mean, I don't know what it was, but it didn't look like it was more than 15,000, which was extremely disappointing for a final, and it's extremely disappointing for a club of the magnitude of Melbourne Victory Football Club.
The weather, yes, the weather wasn't great, but like you said, in a magnitude game like that, you would have thought
14,000, I think they said.
Yeah,
14,000.
You would have thought Melbourne Victory would have really, got over the 20,000.
How much of a scoop last week from Nick Stavroulakis that it was outstanding sales. Hopefully, he can give Mark Milligan better advice when he goes to Newcastle. Otherwise, he'll be looking at Sam.
He said the sales are going through the roof, didn't he?
Yeah, they were. That's what they were talking about.
Yeah. He just forgot the roof that he was referencing.
So, boys,
he was obviously talking about the dog shed outside.
Now we get off the fence here. Your tips. We're all convinced it'll be an Auckland Melbourne City final.
I'm not convinced with Auckland, Chubbs. Look, I want to see him there. I really do. But Melbourne Victory to me showed so many signs that if they put a couple of those chances and opportunity away, I also don't know whether and look, they've been great up until this time. I don't know whether the occasion might overrule Auckland, to be honest, but I just see too much firepower in Melbourne Victory to write them off. On the other leg, you've got to say it's going to be obviously Melbourne City. Western United's got a massive task, but I just can't. I really can't positively say that I'm confident with Auckland.
Tony, well, that's good. You just given us an Albanese Dutton answer. We didn't get an answer.
I know. We should get off the fence.
Okay, I'll say Melbourne Victory based on what I saw on the weekend.
Tony, you?
Obviously, we're stating the obvious with Melbourne City, in my opinion. I think Melbourne City has got too much grunt, too much desire, well-drilled team. I see them getting through. I think it's going to go to extra time, and I think Auckland will just nab them.
Tony, for New Zealand football, it'd be massive to host a grand final, first time A-League outside of Australia and host it in New Zealand. That would be something huge as well, wouldn't it?
Absolutely, it's great for the game. I mean, people want to criticise it and say, "Oh, what about their New Zealand team?" Well, guess what, guys? They're part of our family. They're part of the A League, and and when Nick Becker was appointed as the CEO of Auckland FC and Steve Corica was the coach and Terry McLean the football director, had a lot of these theorists that take out the rubbish on a Monday and Tuesday night coming out and saying, "Oh, Corica can't coach without the new." We took a new team, took a 7 or 8 NPL players amongst others, and has created a real blueprint of how to set up a club and be successful from day dot, together with McFlynn and Doug Calls, their recruitment guy. But Nick Becker, what he's done commercially off the field, with the grounds, with the fans, with the sponsors, he was part of the Citigroup, boys. Obviously, the Citigroup gets rid of good guys and leaves the duds in the building.
We can't really say much. Just agree with you, Tane. Anyway, that was the action over the weekend. Like we said, the women's grand final. Once again, congratulations to Central Coast Mariners, and we're looking forward to the second leg games now this weekend, and we'll be looking forward to who will be hosting the grand final next week. But moving on, like we said, football fever, transfer news. We break a lot of news during the week through various scoops and all that. We broke a big story on Newcastle Jets today, Tone, and it attracted nearly, it's gone a little bit ballistic, over 18,500 views already and climbing. I just want to let's start with the story. Let's start with Dane Ingham, who's close to finalising his contract with an overseas club in Asia. But unfortunately for the Jets, who won't be making any kind of transfer, or because they didn't make him an offer.
It's actually worse than that. They didn't make him an offer, therefore they can't cash in on any potential transfer. Doesn't matter how little or not it may have been. But furthermore, Dane Ingham gets a run of games. Dane Ingham could be a utility option for the New Zealand national team, who's qualified for the World Cup. And if that's the case, not only have they lost on a potential transfer fee, but they've also lost the capacity to get paid compensation from FIFA, which is paid to all clubs that have players that participate in the World Cup. So, for example, if a player is at your club for 2 years prior to the World Cup, the club gets somewhere around $300,000 per player that is selected to represent their nation at the FIFA. That's on top of what the player makes. So Maurice Bissetto, the self-confessed FIFA PlayStation sports director, not only has he lost on a transfer fee because he made the call for personal reasons, but he's also missed out or deprived his club of a FIFA World Cup compensation payment. So that mistake could be as high as 400,000 or 500,000 if Ingham ends up going to the World Cup, as well as the loss of transfer. Now, that isn't astonishing. I mean, Dane Ingham's 26, plays numerous positions. Outside being injured, he's always selected. But, FIFA PlayStation CEOs, sports director.
Callum Timmins as well, we know, hard-working industrial player, and he's also returning home now to the Perth Glory.
Big loss. He did a lot of the grunt work that allowed the Taylors, the Eli Adams, the Lockie Roses to score goals and be attacking. He did a lot of their dirty work. I referenced Timmins as the mafia guy that does all the dirty work for the bosses, in this case, the attacking players. That is a significant loss, in my opinion. And if you talk to the Newcastle Jets players, that is a big loss within their dressing room.
Much with the way they went with Robbie Stanton, do you think, Tony, or the players potentially?
Dane Ingham wasn't made an offer. So that's the FIFA PlayStation sports director, Maurice Bissetto.
Young Matthew Scasilla as well, who I followed closely when he was at the Wanderers and now at Newcastle. He's going back to Sydney FC.
That's a bit different. He was under loan.
He's a loan, so he's going back to the parent club. Justin Vidic, Jacob Dewis, and Ryan Scott as well. They're not being contained by the Jets either. They're going to be moving on. I'm hearing Vidic could be at Wanderers as well.
He's got a lot of potential, that kid. Could be someone. He's still only 20. Robbie Stanton picked him up from Marconi, where he made 3 or 4 senior appearances, but mostly in the 20s. There was a few adjustments and a few personal issues, but I think Justin Vidic is a talented player and he could find a home somewhere else and do really well. I'm not so sure. Jacob Dowse is retired due to injury, and Ryan Scott, they decided not to retain
him. Before we get to their recruitment plans, the big one is obviously, and the main star, who I believe is the talent of the heartbeat of that club, Clayton Taylor. We broke a story a few weeks back as well from my sources where that he wanted out of the Jets, and he still, to my latest information, he still wants out of Newcastle Jets, and that's what I'm hearing. Has there been any update with Clayton? Can there be some kind of resolution where he continues with Newcastle? Obviously, he's under contract.
Obviously, Chubb, I manage the bloke. There's been a request to release. That's private. That's public knowledge. There's a number of reasons for that. And the player still maintains his position that he wants his future to be somewhere else.
I mean, clubs will be lining up to sign Clayton in the A-League because he's just been a standout, and he's the midfielder that every club dreams of having in their squad, definitely. Looking more forward to the Jets, they're looking at Max Burgess as a marquee signing for the upcoming season. Despite previous unsuccessful attempts, the club is also they're actively pursuing a foreign centre-back to bolster the defensive line.
They're obvious choices. If Taylor especially goes, Burgess, I think, is a welcomed addition if they can successfully get him. They definitely need a centre-back. I think guys like Mark Natter have been given plenty of chances, but they need to solidify the defence and put a cork in it, because there was games this year that they lost again at the last few minutes. They were a good team to watch, and considering Stanton put together a bunch of unwanted A-League discards, NYL players and NPL players, it's sad that he's not there to see it through. Hopefully Milligan and your mate Nick Stavroulakis can find the golden well and continue the good work that Robbie Stanton together with his coaching staff.
Chubba TV Football Fever. We always bring the news weeks back. We broke a video again about Sydney FC that we said that Ufuk Talay was all set to remain at the club, and just a couple of days ago, Tony put pen to paper for another year.
I think it's one of those, I know Uffy cops a lot of criticism and some of it he brings on himself, but the reality is, he was a goal away from making the final of the Asian Champions League 2, which would have been tremendous. There's been a whole bunch of young players that have been promoted, and that's in conjunction with the vision of the sports director, Alex Bongian. So I think he deserves that extra additional year. My understanding was a 2-year deal, but they both parties agreed to just do a 1-year deal with an option. So I think he deserves that chance because, they faded back at the back end, and I think that was some of the senior players or the foreign players need to have a good look at themselves. I think they let the coach and the club and some of their teammates down.
Just on that AFC too, I don't know if you saw it last night, the final. We had Lions City, which was a team that knocked Sydney FC out. They went down 2-1 to the UAE team, and the goal came. It was 1-1. The goal came very late, 97th minute. Al Shajar scored and made it 2-1. So
that game, it was the Sailors hit the bar in the first half, recovered well to get to 1-1, and they still had their chances to get to 2-2. It was an exciting game. It was an open game, and kudos to the Lions City guys in Singapore trying to do and put Singapore football on the map. They did that. They definitely got the attention of the Asian football.
A lot of talent running around in that game, Tony.
Yeah, look, you got to understand it's not reflective of the Singapore League, but Lions City Sailors are owned by a billionaire who just goes and buys players. There's players from Germany, Holland, Belgium, France, Croatia, all guys that have come from significant leagues. some real proper players that have played for PSV, players that have played for Club Bruges, real talent. So like I said, it's not reflective of the Singapore League, which is probably a state league level, but that particular club has a lot of talent, and that could compete anywhere.
And Al Sharjah sitting second in the UAE League. I think there's only a game or one fixture to go in that particular competition. So they definitely held their own, that's for sure.
100%.
The coach has been very successful in the UAE, and by all reports is taking over the UAE national team after these commitments with Al Sharjah. So congratulations to them. It was a great atmosphere. It was a boutique stadium, only 10,000 people in there, but highest crowd ever for Lion City. But tremendous game. I stayed up and watched that game. It was really game. Saddened for our boy Bailey Wright, but it wasn't through lack of effort that they didn't succeed, and they could have actually got a result.
Next player I want to mention, it's because I want to go into our next segment as well, because he's playing a major part, being caught up now to the Socceroos squads. Milos Milanovic from the Wanderers, we broke that story as well. He moved to Aberdeen, all set to go. He'll be departing. He's also been caught up in the Socceroo camp with Tony Popovic. That's what I wanted to speak about. Congratulations to him. I mean, it's only the training on squad, but definitely a player that deserves that recognition. Also, young Paul Ocon Jr. also being caught up to that Australian train-on squad. How did you see that Socceroo squad? We know it's a big 30-man squad at the moment. We'll get tripped down.
Well, it's typical Popovic. He's putting the blokes through a difficult camp. I think a lot of those blokes have just been brought in. So, like Paul Ocon Jr. and a few others have been brought in for Popper to have a good look at them. But the reality is they won't be anywhere near selection, in my opinion. I think a lot of the players overseas playing at the moment, Patrick Yazbek, Kai Rolls, Valupale, Victory, Arzani, I think all those guys will come in to the team when we play Japan and Saudi Arabia. So, but look, what I love about Tony Popovic is this, that he's not afraid. I saw him a couple of weeks ago and I said, geez, you've had some injuries, Sudo, Sicardi, Boss. It goes on and on and on. He says, doesn't matter, just find the next one. And that resonates with the players when they come into camp. I think Popovic's strength in that is shining through.
That's brilliant, and you're right. Tony, knowing Popovic from his time here in the A-League and also overseas, he's always been like that. Not afraid to bring someone new in and throw him into the limelight. And huge games for the Socceroos coming up, Andy. And he seems to have got the team back a little bit more settled and moving forward quite well.
I like the look of the Chubbs. I like the look of the older familiar faces, but a couple of the younger ones, which we all get sort of excited about, seeing their progress and their development, especially the ones that we don't really get to see too much at the local level here. And, the ones playing overseas like young Paul Ocon Jr., be able to showcase their talent and hopefully push and make the squad or the World Cup squad, I should say. And it's very exciting. And I think, like you said, Pop he's got a good record, hasn't he? So he knows how to identify the talent and what he needs, and he generally gets what he wants. So it'll be interesting to see how it plays out.
We've got some funny comments coming through our chat box. One there from Michael Fatulis made me laugh. He goes, maybe the interest rates are coming down tomorrow by 0.25%. Could help Newcastle Jets in helping them with players. Tane, you're really teaching our fans your lingo.
Oh, I think psychologists can't even help Newcastle Jets with Morris Bischetto at the hang of it.
Yeah, no, Michael Fatulis always on here. We love that. A few other comments there. Really going off. But, well, that's pretty much, Tane, again, we've covered pretty much the A-League, the Socceroos, our scoops. We're going to keep the stories coming. We'll have more stories during the week as well with Football Fever as they come along. But it's a very busy period and a very exciting period for our game.
It's going to be interesting times. The salary cap being cut or being amended, financial responsibility across the league. There's a huge appetite for young talent. And my biggest fear is that over the last few years, we've sold a lot of players, transferred a lot of players overseas. There's going to be, Body, Segasic, Milanovic have gone or close to going. Lucas Harrington's another one that's going to end up at Colorado. I think, can we keep producing the players quick enough to still have a fantastic spectacle A-League? And for all the doom and gloom, I thought some of the games were outstanding this season. Competitive. Even the teams that finished in the bottom two were competitive and did justice to the league. And I think we need to be careful that we all want to see young players. We all want to see exciting players, I for one. But I think we've got to get the balance right. And I think that's where the big challenges will come for a lot of these clubs. And I also don't understand with Auckland winning the Premier's Plate, if they win the grand final, we need to probably find out and do some research on who takes the Asian spots. We know that an FA Cup winner takes one, and second will take one. Does that mean we get a third one? I'm not sure, and it'll be interesting to see. But definitely what we do know is Auckland cannot.
Tone,
Auckland
what are your over thoughts about the two marquee big signings in the Sydney clubs, Wanderers and Sydney FC? Would you say still they've been okay without being really successful?
It's a difficult one. One Mata wasn't being played. You can't argue with Stadich because I thought the Wanderers were outstanding and great value this year, high tempo, and obviously someone at 36, 37 is going to struggle to keep up to that tempo. So was that a wise decision not to play him or not? I don't know, but he
Does
went
that
on a
show
run.
again about where we shouldn't be going for these kind of marquees? I think you've always been against it too sometimes, because that is the speed of the game and the physicality of the game. It doesn't really help when a player's 37, 38, 36 years old. It's very difficult.
Well, let me ask you two. If you turn on to watch Juan Mata, who I think tremendous history, tremendous background, or did you watch the Wanderers to watch Milanovic and Cicluna, or did you go to watch Clayton Taylor
100%.
or Segasic or Botic? And so I think if we develop our own, it goes back to the old NSL. We're our prime players at the time were the Slaters, the Arnolds, the Patikas, the Calances, the Sapers, all these guys that were Australian, and we've got good players, and the world's seeing that now again, like it used to be. It's come back, and it's come back because we've created these pathways. Now we have 13 clubs. Hopefully, we'll continue to have 13 clubs. They've all got youth setups, all in their respective NYLs. Less foreigners, better opportunities. When was the last time Chubb, that we saw top five top scorers, four of them, I think, being Australian?
A long time.
I don't think we've seen that. We're always used to Fonaroli and Barisha and
Correct.
And other players that the foreigners that used to come. I think it's the under-20s were an epitome of their success, was the exposure of these young kids. What Popovich is doing now with Paulo Junior Oaken is another situation that exists. So I think we need to continue developing. I think we need to continue, but we've got to get the balance right. We still need the blue-collar guys that create the culture and help these kids get through difficult times. I've been part of some MLS moves. Yazbek's regular playing, Finn Sermon's regularly playing, Kai Rolls is even captaining, Arieth Piol's playing. So when we send them overseas, we want them to play, and so then they trust us, and we continue developing, because with the TV money and the central distribution falling by 75%, that's one of our outs. Financial.
What is the latest with both Juan Mata and Douglas Costa, boys? Do we know, are they staying on next season, or are they? Douglas
Costa's got another year. Juan Mata's in discussions.
Fair enough,
mate. Like with imports, like you said, when the famous Ange Postecoglou went hunting and he brought us Barisha for Brisbane, that was the kind of imports that really set alight the league,
and the German Broich,
and 100%.
So again, that's the type of player we want, don't we? All the Fonarolis, all the Majeskis.
Before we let you go, because Ange Postecoglou, we all hope to do well, and he's had a very tough time this year at Tottenham. I mean, 20 losses and everyone calling for his head, but he's had that little bit of a thing where in his second year has won a trophy at every club he's been to. And Tottenham, we know, haven't won a trophy in 50 years, I think, maybe more, 30 years, whatever it is. Shockingly long time, dying for a trophy. They're playing your club, Man United. What do you think is going to happen with Ange? Do you think winning the Europa League is going to be enough to keep him at Tottenham, or do you think his time's up there?
I think Ange is going to win the trophy and give him the two-finger salute as he walks out. I think Daniel Levy, he's renowned for sacking coaches, commercially done an outstanding job. He's the complete opposite to Melbourne City, where Brillo and Vidmar have done a top job on the field, but others have been poor. And Levy's done a tremendous job off the field. Beautiful stadium, corporate facilities, sustainable club, responsible financially. But he's another one that likes sacking coaches like FIFA PlayStation.
If Ange goes, you're hoping that maybe he will stay in the Premier League. Hopefully he can get, definitely if he wins the Europa League and he has that on his CV, surely he's going to be again somewhere in a top job, because that's what we want. We want, he's put Australian coaches on the map, and you want him to be successful. And if he can be the first Australian Greek coach, as he wanted to make sure he mentioned too, as an Australian Greek, winning that Europa League, that's just an incredible achievement.
It is, and just everyone knows that Ange was born overseas, and he's a lifelong fan of AEK Athens. I'm not sure, coaching in the Premier League and he coaching Celtic and coaching in Japan and coaching the national team takes a lot out of you. And nothing would surprise me if he goes back and took on the job of coaching his boyhood club, AEK Athens,
Wow.
a club that's got a fantastic stadium. There's a lot of talented players. They seem to let the talented players go. I mean, I think Ange could do his first full circle by coaching that great club, and who knows? Who knows?
Wow.
Stealth, thank you once again for your input and all your help with the show. We'll catch up again next week, and we'll be speaking during the week as well. But thank you once again.
Gentlemen, goodbye.
Thanks, Stealth. Cheers, mate. Yeah, Chubbs, just on that Europa League final, I actually told Tony during the week in a phone call, but I caught up with John Satsmas, JT, last week, as you know, a friend of the show, a friend of ours, and he's actually heading over to the game. I think he actually flew out late last week. He's heading out to Spain for the Europa League final, and not sure if you're aware, but he's a Manchester United man as well. And I said, well, what are you thinking? Because he actually made a trip out to Tottenham last year and caught up with Ange, sent a photo through with him and Ange. But he said, I can't lose. He goes, I'm a Man United fan, but I want Ange.
Well,
possibly.
I think today, and the people in the chat box really got to put it out there. Well, I think you got a scoop there. It still doesn't mention names. I think for Tony to be mentioning AEK Athens, he would be in the know. He's very close with Ange Postecoglou as well. So Ange Postecoglou could be, the big move, the scoop here, could be on his way to AEK Athens after this Europa League final.
I still think there'll be a lot of clubs wanting his services, Chubbs. I really do.
100%. Anyway, Andy, we got to move to the NPL section. We're going to have one of my mates, Adrian Vranic, who's going to join us for that NPL section because he knows a lot about the NPL and EPL. He'll be joining us. Also, it's going to be massive. We're going to have Paul D of Rockdale Elite, and we know how good Rockdale have been in the NPL here in New South Wales in the last couple of seasons, and a lot of credit goes to that man, Paul D. We're going to speak to him shortly, so they're going to be on there very shortly around 7:45. But Andy, can you go through all the NPL 1 and NPL 2 results quickly for us?
Yeah, mate. So we've got NPL New South Wales. Rockdale ran out 2-1 winners against Sydney FC. Apia 2, Sydney Olympic 0. Sydney United 1, St George City 0. Wollongong went down 1-0 at home to Blacktown City. Chubbs, Northwest Spirit, a massive 5-0 win over Mount Druitt. It's a poor loss for Mount Druitt. Marconi came back to winning ways with a 2-0 away win against Sutherland Sharks. Wanderers and Central Coast Mariners drew 2-2, fought out a 2-2 draw. And we also had, on Friday night, the first game, Manly United and St George Saints finished 0-0. So just looking at, do you want to go through the standings, Chubbs, while we on the NPL?
Yeah, I'll bring them up now. Just let me quickly.
I've got him here.
Oh, you've got him. Yeah, you can bring him up.
Yeah. So Marconi back on top with that 5-point lead from Rockdale. They're on 36, Rockdale 31, Northwest Spirit on 31, Blacktown City 30, Apia 27. Then you've got a 6-point gap to Sydney United, who've climbed into the 6th spot. Then you've got Manly United on 20, Wollongong Wolves also 20, St George Sydney FC on 18, Sydney Olympics, St George Saints 16, Sutherland Sharks 12, and you've got Wanderers and Mount Druitt on 9, and Central Coast at the bottom on 6 points.
We'll just say a quick welcome to Adrian Vranich, a player himself back in the days, had a lot of success in the old NSL and then back in the NPL Premier Leagues with the various clubs, Sydney United as well. Never forget that goal in the FFA Cup game against Heidelberg, which were tremendous scenes out there in Edensor Park. And he's come on to help us a bit with the NPL, and he's a full expert when it comes to the EPL. He's the man in the know. So good evening, Adrian. How are you?
How are you, Chubba? Nice to be on here. How are you, Andy?
Adrian, yeah, good, mate. And Chubbs, welcome.
I think he's getting on now. We're going to have the main man that we want to speak to from Rockdale in Paul D. Yeah, I think he's just trying to get on now. There he is. The main man from Rockdale, and a club that has been flying in the last couple of seasons. And like I said, the main man behind that, the heartbeat of the club. Paul, good evening.
Hello, lads. How are you?
Evening, Paul.
Firstly, again, it was only got onto you today, and you gave us your time, and you said yes straight away to come onto our show, Football Fever and Chubba TV, and we really appreciate that.
No problem at all.
Before we get into everything when it comes to yourself and Rockdale, we can't get you on without asking, how was the Survivor Series? We were all glued watching it. We were disappointed with that injury you copped. You're all fine, we can see now, but it must have been a great experience.
Yeah, it was awesome. I've loved that show forever, so to get a chance to go on was pretty good. So, yeah, the injury was pretty, that was unfortunate. It took ages to get right. That's, been about 10 months now, but yeah, I'm back to normal, so it's all good.
No, it was brilliant, and it was great to see. I mean, we were all glued watching you on there. Just a shame that you got injured. But
just wish I went better.
Yeah. Moving right along, let's look back a bit last year. You did win the premiers. You were minor premiers, which was the main thing. You won after 30 rounds. Unfortunately, couldn't do the double with the grand final. Is that something now this year that you're really looking at, is to try and win the grand final? Again, you're in a great spot, second spot again. Marconi, it's you and Marconi again looking as the top two teams again. I mean, there's many other teams that can cause a lot of problems, but you're up there again. And, what can be the difference to try and get over the line this season?
Well, the first question was yes, it's a goal. We want to win the minor premiership and improve from where we were last year. And if that means getting into a grand final, again, that's great. But you can learn from the experience. You always take away something, from matches where you don't win. And, we probably, didn't play our best style of football. And maybe the moment gets you, the pressure of a final, or how your opponents let you play. But it probably wasn't one of our better displays, but if we get a chance to do it again, I'm sure we'll learn from the experience.
You've probably got you have. There's no doubt about that. You've got the best player in the league. He's been the best player in the league for many seasons now, and I call him me and Adrian here, Liverpool supporters. Andy's a Newcastle supporter. For me, he's the Mohamed Salah of your club. He just will score you the 15, 20, 30 goals, set up goals. How do you coach, how is it coaching a player like Jurasevsky, and how do you keep him going at that kind of rate?
Man, I'll give Euro all the credit that he deserves. He's motivated, and he's got goals, that he sets for himself and targets that he wants to achieve, and he goes about doing it. So he's a real pleasure to coach, but he's probably the most lethal player that I've had any involvement with. He deserves all the credit that he gets. He is lethal in front of goal. He's an incredible athlete, but he's a real competitor and a winner, So when I see him get golden boots and player of the year, he deserves it. He works hard to achieve what he does, and he achieves a lot of really, really good things. Things that the standard player just can't do.
He had a great partnership with Bay Antonio, and we know Bay has now moved on to St. George, and maybe it affected a little bit. Maybe I could say it started a little bit slow. You might say a little bit different, but it looks like now the goals have started to come again for you guys. I mean, on the weekend you scored more goals like Arsenal from 2 great set pieces. Looked like more Arsenal with Rashida, great goals, 2 headers. But I mean, his partnership now is starting to come along again.
No, it does. Look, we try and play in a particular way, and we attack certain areas in the front third, and we like delivery from areas to get Euro into the right position. So, sure, when you change combinations, you have to work on that and refine it and keep working at it to get it where it was and potentially beyond. But you mentioned Bay. Like, Bay's got a lethal left foot from a wide area, and that can put, especially with an early delivery behind a defensive unit, it can put Euro into real strong goal scoring position. So, he gets that from Brendan Chalakin in the 10, who slides him through. He's got that from, right or left players. So we like to attack, with width, but certainly, getting the ball into the right scoring zone for Euro is a real key to our success. So players that can do that and are happy to provide assists are quite beneficial to the team. And we've had that over the last couple of years for Euro.
I just got 2 quick questions before I pass you on to the boys. Firstly, let's that FFA Cup game during the week didn't go to plan. Lost out to penalties, but to SD Raiders, who are currently killing it in the NPL2 in the league that I coach as well, and set for promotion as well. That was some dramatic scenes there, and a bit unlucky because I know you guys would have really liked to have a huge FFA Cup run as well.
Yeah, no, like we set goals to get to the round of 32, so we failed in that endeavour, but. Mate, they're a good side. That's a tough place to go to. And if you don't put a game away and you're allowed to go to penalties, then anything can happen, right? So, we probably needed to do a better job of taking our chances during the game. But in saying that, that's part of what attracts people to cup football, right? So it's an NPL2 team that deserve to go through, and we wish them well at the end of the game and hope to see them, keep going well. But disappointment for us, but I guess it just adds to the story of cup football.
One thing I wanted to speak to you about, Rockdale as a club, for me, are one of the most successful clubs in the NPL, especially what they've been doing. They've got a lot of major sponsorship. They still bring in a lot of supporters. The community out there is excellent, still supporting them, get it behind them. The youth league the youth are going really well this season, which is one thing. They've had a little bit maybe issues over the past, but it's really coming good again. That must be great to see because, like I said, the work off the park with Rockdale and all their achievement, it's really incredible.
It's good. And that's a testament to Dennis Lothar, the president, Matt Riborowski, our head of football, Louis Bilewski, who's worked tirelessly at the committee level for years and years, even when I was a player. There's people behind the scenes at Rockdale that love the club and they're really committed to, continuous improvement at the club. So they deserve all the success that they get. We work really hard as a coaching unit and the players to represent the club well on weekends. But there's a raft of really committed individuals that give their heart and soul to the club. The supporters reward them. We've got a really loyal supporter base that come down and cheer us on all the time, and we try to reward them with good performances. But as a club overall, and you mentioned the juniors, Paddy Nickus has taken the juniors now to a whole new level, and they're doing extremely well. So there's good people at the club at all levels, and they're all really passionate about the club itself. So that's normally a recipe for success.
Andy, Adrian?
Yeah, I'll chime in quickly just on the back of that point. And you're speaking about youth. I follow a lot of youth around me. I'm close to Marconi and Sydney United myself. I go out to a lot of youth games. But we spoke earlier in the show when Tony was on about Noah Botic, as you know, at Western United. He's come from Rockdale. I mean, how important is the focus on youth? You just mentioned that sort of, I suppose, off-field stuff that goes on to ensure that you've got these crop of players coming through and for the success of the club as a whole, especially at your level.
No, it's actually a really important part. And I'll tell you, honestly, I've got 3 main goals in the season. So I want to do as well as what we can in the NPL1, for sure, right? That's a priority. But a second priority is really getting juniors to come through the club and see how many we can get representing us at NPL 1, so junior development through the club. And then players that join us, we really want to see them progress to the next level. So if we can get boys promoted into the A-League or overseas, I actually hold those three objectives like with equal weighting, you know. So a lot of people focus on just success in the NPL 1, and we are absolutely passionate about success at you know, the highest level NPL 1 for our club. But those other two priorities, in my mind, I never forget, and we want to see that happening at the club the whole time.
Hey, Paulie.
Right.
Long time no speak. I hope you're well. I heard a lot about you. You know, my old man's a big Survivor fan, so I kept hearing your name for a couple of weeks there.
Oh, good.
But I've got two questions for you. First one, from Manly to Rockdale, do you see a very big difference, or not so much difference as, you know, as a whole, as a club? You know, when you get to that level where you've got the higher people up on the board or whatever, interacting with players or whatnot, you know, there's little bits that, you know, could assist the player. And the second question is, has your philosophy as a coach changed from those days to now?
It's a really good question. So the answer, there's a lot of similarities at the clubs that you mentioned, like my time at Manly and at Rockdale, in the sense that there's a big commitment on the juniors, and Manly juniors, really, they're second to none. That program that develops players, and there's a style all the way through, that really stands out as a hallmark of Manly as a club and the success that they generate through the youngsters. But in terms of commitment and community and what they stand for, there's some real commonality between both of those clubs. Different areas and cultural backgrounds and so on, but similar in how they approach the commitment at the club. And the second one about philosophy, look, my philosophy in football just keeps evolving, because you want to improve yourself like year on year on year, and just get better at what you do. So, and you learn from some of the mistakes that you make. But my philosophy has always been, I've got a particular way that I want to play football, and it's a really aggressive and proactive style of football. So I haven't changed that. I'd concentrate on high intensity and attacking movements more than just shuffling compact defensive units and being hard to break down. Well, we want to defend really well, but my philosophy in football has been to try and play and coach an attacking brand and an enjoyable brand of football to play as a player. It's what I like to watch. So it's how I like to coach.
I think it's shown. I think you're averaging nearly 3 goals a game this season. Like,
yeah,
that's pretty, even at NPL level. I think that's quite extraordinary. You see teams like Marconi, I think they're only conceded 10 or 12 goals this season. You guys have scored, I think, upwards of 40, and it's difficult to get the players to do that. And if you get the best out of them, you can make a final. You can win the premiership. Like,
yeah, but Marconi's still a good attacking team as well, right? They've just like this year, they've got an incredible defence. So far, it's going well. But normally, if you look at competitions, the best defensive teams normally win competitions, right? So we still have a high priority on defence. It's just if teams can win 1-0 or 4-1. I want to be part of a 4-1 winning team, right? So, but I know everyone's going to say the 1-0 results, just as important. I get that, right? But there's a way that I like to play, and you should notice that it's quite a attacking sort of focused, if you like.
Just one more from me before we let you go. Looking at this year's competition, has there any team that's really taken you by surprise?
No, not by surprise, because the one thing you hear a lot, Chubbs, when you talk about NPL 1, there's a lot of really good teams, and if you don't show up on your day, results don't go your way, right? So no, the competition's as strong as what I thought it would be. Marconi's a standout at the moment. They're doing really well. They've recruited well, and they deserve to be at the top of the ladder where they are. Us, Blacktown, and Spirit are doing really well. Yeah. So I think if you look at Spirit's performance, it's no fluke. They're playing a really good brand of football. So there's some teams that are up at the top of the ladder, as well as Apia, who's a very strong squad. I think the top 5, from what I've seen for the first round of football, they deserve to be where they are. And it's a matter now of trying to improve, on what you've done for the first 15 rounds, and that's going to be up to the players and the coaches of their respective teams.
100%. And like you said, I think every year the NPL closes a little bit of the gap on that A League as well. Like the gap is, I mean, there is still a little bit of a gap, obviously, with the full-time training and the full-time setups, but I think the NPL has come in the last few seasons with everything now that's available to you coaches and information and so on. The NPL has come leaps and bounds, and I think it's terrific to watch.
Look, I agree with you. It's a great spectacle. I watch football all weekend, right? So I watch the A League on Paramount, and I watch it, on YouTube for our own league. But I've got no doubt there's a number of players in the NPL one that would be able to thrive in the A League environment. So I'm hoping again that this next A League season there's more players that are taken from the NPL into the A League because I know they've got what it takes. And even if this second division at the end of the year gives another showcase for A League coaches to look at the state league talent, there's a lot sitting there, right? And I have no doubt, like I said, that you give them full-time environment and, facilities and coaches and players at a higher level, they can rise to that new level. I've got no doubt.
Is that something Rockdale could still be? I know you're not in it yet, but I believe the highest ranked team could still be there, and it could be yourselves.
Well, that's the goal. Don't you worry about that. So, yeah.
At the moment, you would be the team that would take that spot, the final spot.
Yeah. So the foundation members of each of the federation, the foundation members are in the teams, the group of 16. So then it's the highest qualifiers of the 8 other federations that will go in. So as it stands at the moment, Marconi's a foundation club. So if we were second, well, it's actually between us, Blacktown and Spirit, about who'd be going through, But I'm sure that's on every coach's mind. If you're a foundation member, you're there. But the rest will be fighting for that position because that'll be a great competition to be part of, especially for the first one as well. There'll be a lot of eyes on those games, 100%. Which can only be good for the players.
Well, just quickly before we let you go, sorry, Chubbs, I just want to ask, just with aspirations, you just mentioned the professional setup at the A-League level, but is it something that you aspire to maybe coach at that level? Or we actually spoke about on the show that there's a lot of coaches also running around at the NPL level that we feel don't really get a look in, and you can see some of the announcement of coaches that are made, either ex-players that have played at a higher level, but they sort of just...
Well, his assistant's done well. Nick Stavroulakis last year. He's now with Melbourne Victory and moved now with Millie.
And I'm glad. I hope the Victory go all the way. I'd love if he was successful all the way. He's got a tough job away at Auckland, but geez, I'm cheering for him.
But is it something you aspire to, mate, to get an opportunity maybe at that level?
I'd love to, right? Because I'm passionate about football and I'd love to do it. The unfortunate circumstance for me is I've got a lifestyle that's built around, my primary source of income, which is in my corporate life. So, if the gods shine on me and financial overheads go away, I'd love to invest time in full-time football. But I think my path down that road is a little limited, just due to commitments at home. So, love to, but. We'll have to wait and see.
Paul, congratulations. You've done a wonderful job at Rockdale. We really love watching what you do down there and the football that Rockdale play. They're an exciting team in the competition, and it's shaping up again an exciting season and maybe another ding-dong battle with Peter Tsakenaser and Flea and everyone at Marconi, because you two are shaping again to be the best 2 teams in the league. But there's still a long way to go. We're only halfway there, and we know injuries, suspensions, many things can happen in football. But you're doing well so far, and congratulations, and thank you once again for helping us out here in Chubba TV and Football Fever.
You're welcome. It's a pleasure to talk to you guys. Thanks, Chubba.
Thank you, Paul.
Thanks, Paul.
See you, Paul. Sandy.
Adrian, you've worked with Paul yourself as well, and he's done a terrific job, like you said, from his time at Manly, now moving to Rockdale, getting them ticking over as they haven't been so competitive. I mean, he does get a lot of backing from the community and the club there, but he's been doing the job on the ground as well.
I think Paul's a very respected man in the NPL. He was always a very lovely man to me. We always used to have chats before or after game. He always gave me the time. But I think wherever he's gone, Manly, now Rockdale, his results have backed up his knowledge of football essentially, and I think he's going to do well wherever he goes. I know this year, like you said, we're only halfway through, but they're showing signs. They can score goals and they can defend, and that's at the end of the day, that's football, And he's getting it and he's nailing it with the players that he's got, and we'll see how he goes.
Andy, the league ladder at the halfway stage is shaping up to be where I thought, and probably the only surprise team in that top six. If you look at it, is Spirit. You've got Marconi, Rockdale Spirit, Blacktown City, Apia. Now Sydney United have creeped up to that sixth spot. You're getting those six big teams at the moment, and with Spirit, the surprise package, it's going to be a ding-dong battle the next 14 games, 15 games.
Yeah, the other one I think too is Blacktown City, Chubbs. I think we spoke about it a few weeks ago. I personally, I wasn't sort of expecting them to be top four at this stage. But yeah, no, it's very interesting. It's refreshing to see someone like Spirit up there, as we mentioned as well on the show previously. But mate, look, I love this competition, as you know, Chubbs. I go up the road to Marconi or to Sydney United whenever we can to watch a game. The Australia Cup, I don't know whether you saw the scenes the other week, last week, Sydney United, which we spoke about. Also the SD Raiders and Rockdale game on the weekend with the crowd running onto the field, obviously SD Raiders locals and youth players. So it's, and look, let's not, I think Paul was being quite honest in his response there, but they'll be disappointed of not getting knocked out of that competition. It's a massive competition for these NPL clubs, as we know.
Andy, just before you go through all the results in our league, in the NPL 1 league, I'll get you to say, Adrian, I wanted to ask you a question. From your time, the NPL 1 to the Premier League and NPL 1 now to the, I think the gap was a lot bigger. But I think in recent time with the coaching and a lot of the videos now and the strength and conditioning coaching and just the way football is played now, I think would you say that the gap is closing, especially with the NPL 1 and the Premier League and into the A-League?
I think even back, 2020, 2019, when I was at Sydney United or Sutherland, there was always players, like Paul said, there was always players, a group of players that you would think, if they had the full-time environment, they would make that jump. And I think now it's something that you just said. I think they're more accessible to that higher level strength and conditioning. I think that they know that, we might have to do an extra day of training per week. And, at the end of the season, that all adds up. But it's all the little, in their football, they say the little 1%ers that will make that jump closer and closer and closer. Every year we see in the FFA Cup, we see Sydney United a couple of years ago make it all the way to the final. We see teams make the semis from Melbourne. It's always going to get closer. And I think there will come a point where maybe, with these foundation teams that we might see that jump actually happen finally. But at the same time, we risk maybe a bigger jump between the second string to the third string at the same time. So yeah, I do think it's improved always. I think it's always going to improve.
I think now when you've got the games on YouTube and you've got the VA cameras there all the time, one thing I think we were lacking as players, well, back in my time, maybe, you needed your dad to maybe get a bit of video footage. The fact that a player now can go home, get the video, watch themselves for 90 minutes or the YouTube and really study their game. Now, some footballers don't even do that now, which is extraordinary, but the ones that do put that time in and actually put the effort into the training and then walk away at home and look at the video and look at the YouTube and really study their performances, I think that's where those players really close the gap, and it makes a huge difference in the football we play right now, Andy.
Yeah, clubs and Chubbs, it's not just the players, the clubs are the ones that are using the benefit of it too. I mean, I know even at my daughter's at youth level, I'm sure it happens in a lot of clubs, but they clip up the VO clips and send it to the player. So you can imagine that's happening at the senior level. That source of footage for coaches, as you mentioned, it wasn't around when me and you, Charles, were obviously a lot older than Adrian, but that source of technology to have and for players to go back and rewatch that, or even analysing other teams, because let's be honest, you can see some footage of players individually and pretty much what they do at a professional level, but it's massive. It's massive, and obviously when a club or a coach individually or coaching staff are using it that well. I know what a lot of clubs in the female space, obviously in the senior space, in the women's men's space as well. They've got video analysts. That's all their job. So they
100%.
they cut up clips from VO.
We use them in the dressing rooms at half time as well. So it's football's come a long way. It's come a long way, and with technology.
When you're talking development of players, boys, girls, youth, seniors, it's just huge,
Andy, do you want to just quickly go through the NPL 1 results quickly, the league table, and then we're going to move to a very exciting, dramatic EPL where that top 5 race is really heating up in the last 2 rounds.
Started Friday night, Charles. Blacktown Spartans 2, Hills United 1, Northern Tigers. These games were all on Saturday. So Northern Tigers 1, University of New South Wales 1, Rildemy 1. Bankstown City 1, Rildemy 0. 2 red cards in that game. Macarthur Hakawa Sydney drew 2-2. SD Raiders continued their winning form, a 4-2 win over your mob Dulwich Hill Chubs. Newcastle Jets 4, Canterbury Bankstown 2. And we also had Bulls Academy run out 2-0 winners against Mounties Wanderers. The table now in that New South Wales League 1, SD Raiders continuing on top, 5-point gap now to Northern Tigers. They're on 34, Northern Tigers 29, Bulls Academy 28, University of New South Wales and Newcastle Jets on 27, Interlines 6 spot on 24. Then you got Spartans 23, Canterbury Bankstown 22, Rildemy 21, Bankstown City Lions 20, Hakawa Sydney 16, Dulwich Hill 15, Hills United and Boundary Glide Eagles and Mounties Wanderers all on 12, and Macarthur Rams at the bottom of the table on 9 points.
Yeah, definitely the SD Raiders are on fire. Like you said, they're killing it. They beat us.
How did you find coming up against them?
Yeah, they're a very difficult team. They're a good team and doing really well. They had that, and credit to them because it would have been hard backing up after those scenes. Beating Rockdale as well and a high, but they're playing some good football, and they're really in contention to take that the premiership and move up to NPL. The big news out of SD Raiders was the departure of Nick Cole, coming out that he's moved on from the club, and Nick Cole's done a terrific job. You can see what he's done there. They've had multiple promotions, the women's and everything. So we'll look forward to where Nick Cole's moving. A lot of rumours he could end up in the A-League, which will be great for him, but he's done a terrific job there. So it was interesting to see him, Adrian, and Andy leaving SD Raiders.
Is there a reason behind it, boys? Anyone know?
Well, don't know the exact reason, but he has spent quite a bit of time there and done a terrific job.
Okay, fair enough.
All right, that pretty sums up our NPL 4 section as well. We're going to now move on to the Premier League. Andy, do you want to quickly say the Premier League results? And firstly, before we'll speak about the Premier League, you'll say the results. We'll get into the FA Cup. There's plenty to talk about in the FA Cup, plenty to talk about in the Premier League, and of course, we've got the Europa League final to look forward to this week as well. So there's plenty of things to look forward to.
Yeah, Chubbs, another quick one I want to mention, only because they're our rivals, but we also had midweek the Championship playoff decider, the final of the playoff decided with Sunderland they drew with Coventry. They did take the first leg out 2-1, but they managed to hold on to a 1-1 draw at home back at the Stadium of Light. I don't know if you saw the scenes there, but passionate about their football up that way, as we know, boys, in the northeast of England. And so they'll be playing Sheffield United next weekend for the final spot of that, what they call the richest club game in the world, boys, as we know. So and a massive effort for Sunderland, considering they were in League One 2 seasons ago. So they've managed a rebuild. They're a huge club, as we know, but you've got to get it right off the field. They've done that rebuild. A part of me wants them back in the Premier League. A part of me doesn't, as you can imagine. But that was a massive result. I just thought I'd mention that, boys, because it was quite fitting. But they are going to be outsiders against Sheffield United, who finished, I think, about 14 points ahead of them on the table. That's going to be an interesting one, that playoff final.
Adrian,
I watched that game and I kind of felt sorry for Frank Lampard
Oh, me too.
because where he had that team initially to where he got them, and then Sunderland score in the
incredible.
122nd minute or whatever it was.
Incredible.
Yeah, I felt bad for him, even though, I'm a Liverpool supporter and he's Chelsea through and through and whatnot. I felt bad for him. He did a really good job. And he probably
I
just
think they were
deserved it.
17th. Were they 17th when he took over or
Yeah.
something?
Yeah, they were just above relegation zone.
Unbelievable.
He's done a
Unbelievable.
terrific job, and because in the last, he had a lot of controversy and a lot of bad publicity in his last few jobs, and he's really put his name back out there with the job he's done at Coventry. It's been excellent. Moving forward to that FA Cup, I mean, everyone had Man City penciled down. Definitely they would win it this year after last year going down to 1-0 to Man United, and the season that Pep Guardiola's had this season, it was their last chance for a trophy. I watched that game. Yes, Man City had the ball. Yes, they were the dominant team. But if you believed who was going to score next, you always believed it was going to be Crystal Palace. They were unlucky with the offside goal as well. Eze for me, I wish Liverpool, any club's not on to him.
He's unbelievable.
He's at another level. How not every club is trying to jump on him, but Age, what do you think of Man City again this season? Just turmoil ending and just not win. Very disappointed that the way they finish up.
Look, when Roger went down at the start of the season, I said that's it, they're done. I'll be honest with you, but I didn't think it'd be this bad. I don't think anyone thought it was going to be this bad. But you watch the game against Southampton, even with all the chances that they had, they don't look like scoring. They're not threatening. De Bruyne lost his legs last season, and I think it's showing a lot now. I think they're losing that little bit of creativity up the top. Haaland, he's not the player that creates. He's not the player that does all this stuff that works and tries to make space for himself and whatnot. He's a great goal scorer. He's probably the best finisher in the world at the moment, but it's difficult. I look at Palace. I thought Palace were a very big chance going into that game because of how Eze is playing, because of Munoz, the right back, how he overlaps, he gets in behind. They've got so many avenues of attacking, but it was just the standard Man City game. Even watching that, if you've watched City throughout the year, you go, with the amount of possession that they have and chances that they create, you're thinking they're winning games 2, 3, 4-0, but they don't. They've lost that little bit, and at that level, I think you can get exposed pretty badly if you lose that little touch. Where I think Pep's been so good over the years, making sure he'd bring in a player 2 seasons prior to get rid of that player, to cover that player and train him up. Where I think he's stuffed up a little bit. They've had a lot of injuries, but still, they don't look like the old Man City at the moment.
Andy, you still think Pep's the right man to be taking him on and rejuvenate that club or rejuvenate the team?
Well, what are they going to do, Chubbs? They're going to go into market. They're going to buy. They'll reinforce where they need to reinforce. But I think just back on Adrian's point, and look, I know being a Newcastle fan, you can let the teams have all the possession they want. Their football's just come a long way when you're not sort of I don't know, that cutting edge in that final third. I read a quote today. The Crystal Palace manager Glasner said to, I don't know whether he actually said it indirectly to Pep Guardiola. He goes, "I hope they always play that way because we know now how to unlock it." And that's where the football has changed now. With a lot of these clubs are getting that and are letting teams have the possession all they want, but it's a counter attack. It's a couple of players that can play off the cuff like they do, like someone like Eze. And you know what? I actually finally saw. You probably know Mark Gray was England international, and we've been heavily linked with him. But I could see now why he was worth the amount of money that was thrown around for him as a defender. Fantastic game. They just really controlled them. Yes, they did have all the possession, but as Adrian said, I don't think they were overly too threatening.
Can I say they're currently sitting in 6th. Now, they're outside the top 5. Obviously, they've got that game midweek with Bournemouth before every team plays the same time on Monday morning, our time. Is it possible, Adrian? Can they miss out on this top 5?
I think because I was reading it up, I think because Crystal Palace won, it opens up more spots for Europe. Maybe they miss out on Champions League.
Well,
There's a
obviously
high
they're not
chance.
going to miss out on Europe, but yeah, here
They're
we're
not missing
talking
out on Europe, but
is it
the
possible
Champions
they
League
miss out
spot.
on the Champions League spot?
Well, there's 5 spots, right? And because the EPL teams played so well in the Champions League that they performed, that now we've got 5 spots in the EPL. I don't think they miss out. I struggle to see that they're going to miss out. I think they've got 2 games in
They've
hand where
got
other teams
Bournemouth
have one.
midweek. Yeah, they've got Bournemouth midweek, which will then put them, on equal games because they're in 6th spot. But Andy, can they beat Bournemouth? Is that a 3-pointer there? Oh, he's lost us. Well, continue. Can you?
I think they should be beating Bournemouth. I think they should, but they should have beat Southampton. They should have beat
Yeah,
a lot of teams this season, and it's just
you're
like I
right
said.
about that. The biggest worrying thing about him, the goals have dried up.
Yes, like they got Villa's on 65, 66, Chelsea 66, Newcastle 66. Really, if they pick up 2 wins, one of those 3 teams you think are dropping 8 points.
Yeah.
They've got 2 bites at the cherry pretty much. And I think either Aston Villa, Newcastle, or Chelsea, one of them are dropping points. And I think Aston Villa's got Fulham the last round. I'm not too sure.
Well, the most exciting game in that last round has got to be Nottingham Forest and Chelsea. They're playing each other. So
yeah,
that is going to be enormous. If Forest, they were in the top 3 the whole season. They've stumbled in the last bit. They got an important win over West Ham yesterday, which was a huge win for them. But that's a huge game with Chelsea. I mean, if they beat Chelsea, they'll definitely be in the top 5.
they beat Chelsea, they jump Chelsea. And then I think, but between the other games, it's a very good chance that they qualify for the Champions League as well. So,
I mean,
I don't know.
Forest will
We'll
be
see. We'll see.
like you said, a club like Forest now sitting in the Conference League spot, they'll take that, where they were from last season. They'll take any European position. But if they can sneak into that Champions League spot, that would be enormous.
Well, I don't know. Did you see the owner last week or after the game?
When he walked onto the field to have his say, he wasn't a happy camper, was he?
Mate, you've gone from 17th and you're fighting for top 4, and you're walking up like the disrespect to do that in front of the whole crowd and the
That's
TV.
Macaroni. That's how he's up. But in saying that, he has backed that club. He has, he's backed all the managers. So I suppose, he's like him or hate him. That's how he is. That's how he come across. But one thing you can't take away from him, he's really backed that club, and he's put that club back on the map where it deserves. Because since Brian Clough in those days, Nottingham Forest spent a lot of time in the championships and lower leagues, and now to be a force back in the Premier League is huge.
I think them and Villa are the 2 teams that now they kind of have to watch out for financial fair play, though, because I know Villa, they're looking to get rid of Martinez and a couple of other players. Where Forest, they've bought a lot of players, smaller players in the last couple of years. There's the possibility that they both could drop off in the next couple of years if they're forced to sell some players. And it sucks because they've worked so hard, both of them, to get slowly up the ladder, more so like Villa slowly up the ladder, where Forest has made this massive jump this season. But it would be a shame, and that's where I think the EPL is a bit. I don't know. I don't like that fact because it kind of helps the bigger clubs to stay bigger clubs, and you don't have that threatening smaller clubs coming in each year to maybe take them off their mantle.
Another club we've got to look at in the top 5 race is Newcastle. They're home to Everton. Now, Everton, what scenes? We've got to speak about Everton a little bit too. Last game ever there at the Everton's home.
At Goodison.
At Goodison Park. Dramatic scenes there. I mean, finally an end of an era. They're moving to a great stadium as well. But you would think they played their final game, Everton, this week, and you would think that although Newcastle lost to Arsenal yesterday, they were very good in the first half. Shouldn't have lost that game, but you would think Newcastle should get the job done at home in a buzzing St James Park against Everton.
You think so? Isak might be out. He was out this morning.
He was out this he's got an injury.
He was out this morning.
Yeah.
They've got he's got a bit of a groin injury. Apparently needs surgery. So I don't know if his season's done. I've been saying the last couple of weeks when I've been watching him because we've been linked with him, and Arsenal have been linked with him, and there's 150 million. I've been watching him thinking, mate, what's going on? This isn't a $150 million player. So I think he's had this problem for about a month or two now, and I think they're looking at maybe resting him. I don't think Callum Wilson can get them over the line. I think it'd be more so Anthony Gordon or Murphy, because they've both been, more so Murphy because Gordon's just come back from injury. But I think it's a closer game than you'd expect. I know at home last game of the season for Newcastle, you'd think to yourself, they're going to run away with it, but anything can happen final day.
Well, it's been a dramatic season this year. You've got Liverpool winning the Premier League, Crystal Palace winning an FA Cup, Newcastle winning a League Cup. It's been that season. So any toss and turn now coming in the last round is definitely there. I'll put you on the spot.
Yeah.
Who do you think will finish in this top 5 at the end of this week? Well, you take Liverpool and Arsenal out, so it's pretty much third. Who's going to take the last 3 spots?
All right, so Man City got Fulham. At Fulham.
They got Bournemouth and
Fulham.
They got Bournemouth Wednesday morning and then Fulham. Yeah.
Look, I think it'll finish. It'll finish Liverpool, Arsenal. I think I'll go City third. I think Newcastle, and I'll back Nottingham to do Chelsea.
Wow.
So I reckon that'll be a top 5.
Liverpool and Arsenal. I think Newcastle will get the job done to Everton. I wasn't impressed with Man City in the FA Cup. Like you said, I haven't been impressed. Now you've got to back them. It's Pep. They've got the team.
They've got 2 bites at the cherry.
Yeah,
that's
so they've got 2 bites at the cherry.
Give it to them.
So we've got to say Man City, Aston Villa. I'm going to say Chelsea's going to just get it over. I just think Forest are going to just come a little bit short. It's going to be a terrific season. I just think they're going to end up a little bit short and miss out. But then again, we could have big twists, and that's the exciting bit of the Premier League. Unfortunately, this year there's no relegation battle. The Premier League was won very early on, but this top 5 race has been really interesting. Well, it's interesting now with, like you said, with the extra spot available. It's made it really interesting for these Champions League positions.
Well, I think even I'm pretty sure as it stands, it goes up to 9th, possibly, the European spot. So then you've even got Fulham, Brighton, and Brentford.
Yeah, for the conference.
Bournemouth as well. They've got 2 games, all fighting for the conference and Europa. So it's going to be a busy last day.
Last game of the season. Well,
I'm pretty sure it's up to 9.
Yeah, let's moving forward. Moving forward now, we've got those big games coming up that we want to. The Europa League final is going to be coming up. Man U, Tottenham, both clubs probably have had seasons they would forget. I never believed in my era I would see Man United as bad as I ever have, because we grew up in the era where Man United were dominating with Sir Alex Ferguson. The drop has been dramatic in the past year, but somehow they found their way to win a Europa. It's incredible that one of these teams are going to be represented in the Champions League next season. But what are you thinking there?
Look, I wished for this Manchester United downfall when I was younger. Did I expect it? No. But I think that as much as it burns me because I want to see Ange win it, I think Maddison's out, Kulusevski's out now, Bergwall's out. They have no creative midfielders in that team, and I think they'll struggle. Ange has been saying that he's going to be resting players the last couple of weeks. He hasn't. He's been playing his full-strength squad nearly because it's the only players he has available. I think Man U are starting to do a little bit at the right time of the season. And I think there's a possibility. I think they will win it, as much as I want to see Ange win it.
Andy, I hope St. James's Park doesn't have a blackout edge like you on the weekend and miss out on that top 5 with Everton like you've just had.
Boys, I don't know what happened there. Everything just cut out. The girls are calling me, Dad, the lights are flickering. I don't know what's going on. So apologies, boys. I thought I'd just managed to come in late. Hopefully I missed all the Liverpool talk, and I'm just coming to say bye.
Well, you missed a lot of the talk. We're just thinking, if you want to give us your thoughts quickly, you can give us your thoughts. I might as well ask you, is Newcastle should get enough now? Everton probably played their final last game, Goodison Park, dramatic scenes. You would think they should be enough to win and, pretty much sew up a 3rd or 4th spot finish.
Oh, look, I was disappointed with our result this morning against Arsenal. I think we should have got more.
First half should have kept them in the game. First half, second half, I thought you were disappointed, but first half played really well.
I think so too, but I still don't think they really had too many clear-cut chances. But yeah, look, you'd think we'd hopefully get the business at Everton, but as you know, the last day, boys, of the season, my favourite round is the last day, all the games at the same time, especially when you've got a cheeky multi going, Chubbs, as you know. So it's always a tough one, but yeah, look, we'd hope we'd do enough to manage to secure that top five. But can I just quickly ask? I don't know whether you guys have already spoken about it. But what about the business Liverpool's already doing up? Wow,
Crazy.
Yeah, Frimpong, Kurza now looks to be coming in as well. So they're, well, Slot didn't get backed in this window. We know he only brought in Chiesa 10 million. So now that he's won it, he's as a new manager, he's definitely going to want FSG to back him, and hopefully they do back him. And good signs, good signs. Still a lot to do,
great
but
signing
good
so
signs.
far. Yeah.
I think I think Chuba knows this well too. We've always the last 10 years since the new owners took over, we've always been a club that's sold to buy, and it's been very annoying. We had one window where we bought McAllister and Szoboszlai and whatnot, where it was the first time we kind of bought without selling. And we've got $180 million for winning the league now, and you'd kind of expect it because we didn't do anything last year. Like, let's say Chiesa wasn't even a signing because he's played 40 minutes all season in the league. So I think I'm expecting this, but I'm expecting the likes of Jota or Nunez, Kelleher, and a lot of outs still to come. But I think because we've won the league, we've got the luxury of doing our business early and going, okay, these are who we want. We want to get this done before they go on holidays, and we'll see what we've got when we come back if we need to, patch some holes.
Anyway, boys, time's up and my time is up. So another terrific show. Thanks, Adrian. Great part of it. Hopefully we'll see you back next week.
Thanks, Andy.
You'll be back next week.
Good, buddy.
Andy, good luck. Hopefully we'll be following Newcastle very closely, and hopefully when you're on the show next week, you'll be talking about a Champions League finish.
Hopefully, Chubbs. Yeah, no, let's hope it's a good week. Another big week in football coming up, and no bigger than that last round of the Premier League.
100%. Thank you, gentlemen. Have a great night. We'll see you at the back post again in the next video. See you guys.
Take care,
mate.